Everyone nowadays has their own personal computer, but did you know how they're built, what parts they're made out of, how they all fit together, and that you can build one yourself? It's time to go inside the computer. All you need are both regular and Phillips head screwdrivers, some way to organize the various screws that hold it all together, and optionally, a friend to help you keep track of things. It's time to learn the components that computers are made of, starting with the case. The case houses all of the parts and incorporates them all together. This is like the skeleton of the computer. The CPU processes instructions and data contained in software. It is like the brain of the computer. The bottom is covered in tiny pins that fit into specific sockets. The heatsink fan removes heat being produced by the CPU by conducting the heat and blowing it away. You could think of it like the sweat glands. The motherboard is the main circuit board that holds a lot of the crucial components of the system and provides connections for the others. It's like the spine of the computer. A random access memory stick holds data just long enough for the computer to read it, and when it's done, it can be wiped away. Volatile memory disappears when the power stops. This is why RAM is like short-term memory. The hard drive is another type of storage device. It writes on rapidly rotating disks with a magnetic arm. This is where all the data is stored. Non-volatile memory gets saved, even after the power is off. This is why the hard drive is like long-term memory. The optical drive uses a laser and lens to read a disc like a CD or DVD. Some even include the option to burn them. These are like the computer's eye lenses. The graphics card is like a whole nother computer. It processes image data and feeds it to the monitor, similar to the optic nerve. The power supply regulates electricity coming in through an outlet, so that each part of the computer gets an adequate amount of power. The power supply can be compared to the central nervous system. When you feel confident that you know what these parts look like, go ahead and open up your case and have a look inside, because you are going to learn how to build a computer. The first step is to install your motherboard. To do this, gently place it into your case and make sure that the ports fit in to the port slots. These will be used much later. Notice the holes in the board? They should each line up with the metal nuts on the side of the case. Just screw them down one at a time. As you're watching this video, keep in mind these next steps can be completed in any order, but be conscious of space and orientation, especially if you have a small case. Now you will see how to place the CPU into the CPU socket. Make sure you don't touch the metal prongs on the bottom. Line it up above the CPU socket and gently drop it in. The triangle on the top corner should always line up with the one on the socket before closing the bracket. Some sticks of RAM also use heatsink technology. Make sure you line up the bottom of the RAM to the memory slots on the motherboard. Also, make sure you keep track of which order they're in. Just snap the tabs in place along the sides like so. You've just installed your own RAM. This step covers the functions in the front of the computer. Here's the speaker. These are the LED connectors. They normally go in one or two at a time, but you can take them together once you've figured out the correct order. And the USB connectors power the USB ports on the front of the case. This computer is using USB 2.0 ports, but 3.8.0 is available as well. Most computer cases have designated hard drive slots as well as optical drive slots. When inserting the hard drive, make sure the connectors are facing the inside of the computer. And just slide it into one of the hard drive slots. Now it's time to screw it securely into place. You don't want your hard drive wiggling around while in use. This may cause internal damage, and some of the non-volatile data may become corrupted. The optical or CD/DVD drives slide in the front. Push it through and align it so that it can be screwed in. Here's the second optical drive being installed. When you are installing these pieces, it is important that you are gentle with them and to not screw them in too tight or you might strip them. The graphics card is an add-on that has its own processors, fans, circuit board, and it connects into this PCI slot. PCI stands for Peripheral Component Interconnect. The HDMI/DVI ports should be fitted into the slots in the case, and it should be screwed down securely so it doesn't wobble under its own weight. Additional fans should be installed to control the temperature inside. Line up the holes in the fan with the holes in the case and screw it on. The power supply does exactly what you would think a power supply would do: supply power. Each of these cords connects to a different component. It has its own cooling fan and an electrical port with an on-off switch. Place the power supply into the case, noting where the large slot is in the back of the case. Make sure to screw this in really securely. The heatsink fan system works to control the temperature for the CPU. Thermal paste is required on the bottom so that the CPU has good contact with the metal and can convect heat more efficiently up through the metal towards the cooling fan. The heat sink is placed directly on top of the CPU, lining up the brackets onto the heat sink mount on the motherboard. To keep it in place, push down on the latch until it snaps close. Then, plug in the cord to the motherboard. Now that you have everything in place, it's time to start plugging everything in. The main motherboard power connector supplies power to each of the computer's components that are attached to the motherboard and is plugged into the 24-pin power connector. These smaller 4-pin power cables supply additional power throughout the motherboard and are inserted into the 4-pin power slot. The PCI graphics card cable runs from the power supply directly to the top of the graphics card. The cord has another connector for multiple graphics card use. The fan power cable slot gets its power from the power supply as well. Just plug it into the 4-pin peripheral power cable. Further down the power cord there are more plugs, so plug them into the hard drive and optical drive. In addition, there are data cables that transfer information for the computer to read at unimaginable speeds. This is an integrated drive electronics cable, or an IDE cable. After inserting the plug into the IDE connector on the motherboard, plug another one of the 3 ends into the IDE connector on the hard drive. This will allow the hard drive to communicate with the rest of the computer. Then take the last connector and plug it into your Optical Drives IDE connector. Now the computer can receive data from CDs and DVDs. Another type of data cable is the SATA cable, or the Serial Advanced Technology Attachment. It is newer, faster, and more efficient than the older IDE connector. Place one end in the SATA slot on the motherboard and the other into the other optical drive. After plugging everything in, it is a good idea to gather the cables and tuck them away somewhere, making sure they aren't touching or blocking any fans. This helps with the air circulation inside the case. Congratulations, you just built your own computer. Place the side panels back on and screw them into place if necessary. Now just plug in your keyboard, mouse, and speakers, or any other add-ons you want, your monitor, making sure to secure the plug tightly, and of course your power adapter. Once these are all in place, your computer should boot up properly. Thank you for watching our video and sticking through with us to the end. I hope you learned something about building computers today. If you'd like to assess yourself, there's a short quiz in the comment section below. Have fun building your computer.